Welcome inside Gillette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. It's rainy, drizzly, dreary, but the picture is crystal clear. Chris, for the New England Patriots, they are the #1 seed in the AFC in the upcoming playoffs. Home field clinched throughout until the possibility of the Super Bowl in Glendale, Arizona. Thanks to Andy Dalton and the Cincinnati Bengals taking care of Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos on Monday night by a score of 37-28. So the Patriots have a week to really get themselves healthy, get themselves ready for the playoff push. But as Bill Belichick and Tom Brady were talking here on Tuesday, it's really not so much about looking towards the playoffs as it is making sure that they finish the season strong.
Exactly. There's something to be said for going into the postseason on a high note, even though there's nothing on the line this week. I think you're going to see the starters play for the better part of a half. I think that with the bye, you have to get them out there. You need to get them running around a little bit. You need to get them banged up and kind of, make sure that everyone is in football shape, requisite football shape for the postseason. So I do think we're going to see the starters, but I think once the second half rolls around, we're going to see the backups. I think if you're the coaching staff, you have fundamentally a checklist of things you want to see this team accomplish going into the playoffs. It just depends on when they're able to accomplish those things. That really is going to tell me when those starters are pulled, when they go to the backup guys.
I know you wrote about this on WEEI.com. There have been different ways that Bill Belichick has handled this in the past, but I think it all comes back to the variable of how and when you get those items on that checklist crossed off, right?
Exactly. We always go back to the 2010 game where they had everything clinched going into the regular season finale here. And they ended up playing the starters for the better part of the first half. We saw Brady yanked, I believe it was in the second quarter, Brian Hoyer was put in. Brady came back in, and then they made the switch for good in the third quarter. Ben Jarvis Green-Ellis hit 1,000 rushing yards for the season in the second half. They pulled him after that. So if there are specific playtime incentives, if there's a need to look at some different personnel packages, those types of things, those are the things to really look for this week when you're looking at the Patriots.
All right, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, again, would not offer any indication of exactly how much they're going to play, and that's no shock. I mean, we've seen that for many years around here at Gillette Stadium. But what was interesting to me was the fact that there is a single-minded focus here at Gillette as you go into the playoffs, and it was kind of a somber mood. You got the sense in looking at Belichick and definitely talking to Tom Brady, they were not pleased with how things really unfolded in New York on Sunday. They got the win, but still, it looked like a hangover effect.
Yeah, it really was. And we talked to some of the guys in the locker room Monday. We're going to be going to the locker room in a few minutes. You mentioned Brady was very subdued. Belichick was very downcast as well. There was a feeling that, look, we got to get our act together with the postseason here. And again, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. You want to see them come out with an energy, with an edge in this one, take care of business relatively early on, go into the postseason feeling good about yourself.
All right, we have talked about postseason, or the last month of the season and what momentum really means, and I think you bring up a great point. Really, momentum, and I asked Brady this, doesn't mean squat over the last month of the year. The two things that you really have to be concerned about are health and matchups come the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's true. And I think we kind of tend to make a little bit more of momentum than we should. I think you look at the past Super Bowl winners, and those are teams that struggled at times down the stretch. Seattle had their issues down the stretch last year. Before that, Baltimore.
Right.
You can look back at the last handful of years and see these teams in November and December that weren't necessarily playing their best football going into the postseason. It's health, it's matchups. Those two things far outweigh any sort of momentum that you would need going into the playoffs.
I think something that is also going to get a lot of play out of today, Tuesday, here at Gillette Stadium, is the praise that Tom Brady had for Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels, we all know, has been the butt of a lot of criticism, butt of a lot of jokes, and really the subject of a lot of criticism among Patriot fans and throughout Patriot Nation. But Tom Brady really stepped up today and called him a phenomenal coach, a great coach, a close friend, and somebody I trust really wholeheartedly on the field.
Yeah, they do have a background together. I mean, this goes all the way back to the early part of this century, so these guys are going on about a decade or so together. So, it just makes sense for Brady to say that. It's going to be interesting to see how this offense evolves, not only in the regular season finale, but going into the postseason, what they're going to do, how they're going to match up, where they're going to try and exploit some of those mismatches in opposing defenses.
How much will the Patriots focus on the run?
I think that they're going to focus probably more on the run this week than they have in weeks past. For a couple of reasons. Yeah, I think it's the safer bet. I think it's a chance to get some guys, a few more carries. I think you want to see some more out of Jonas Gray. Maybe Brandon Bolden's going to get some carries. You want to see if LeGarrette Blount is back to something approximating 100%. I also think too, from a matchup perspective, it's questionable how much you want to play into this. But from a matchup perspective, I think they would have a lot better time running the ball against this Buffalo defense than they would passing. Buffalo is one of the best pass defenses in the league. They're vulnerable at times against the run, so it's going to be something to look for come Sunday.
Do you think going up against the Jets and Bills and the Dolphins, for that matter, in the last 3 games, those defenses get the Patriots somewhat ready for the playoffs?
I think when we talked about mismatches, I think that's very important when you're talking about getting your team ready for the postseason. I think the team that they saw last week in the Jets provided a real good test for them defensively, not offensively, but defensively, when you're talking about preparing for the postseason. You have a Bills team coming in here, and again, we don't know how much they're going to play it straight up with nothing on the line, but you have a Bills team coming in here that is really good against the pass, all the way across, not only in the secondary, but up front as well. So it's going to be a stern test for this offense. It's going to be a great test for this offensive line.
All right, as the rain continues to fall here at Gillette, not quite snowflakes. Usually I ask you, Chris, the score prediction for the upcoming game. This is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to ask you the prediction of how much Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and Vince Wilfork play, because that's really what a lot of fans are wondering about come Sunday.
I think if they look good out of the gate, if they're able to put up some points early, if they're able to put together a clean series of offensive plays, if let's say 21 points, you don't want to put a point on it, but 21 points, 28 points, if they look crisp, if they look efficient on offense, I think Brady is yanked in the third quarter. I think defensively, it's another question. I think you want to see Wilfork, probably the same amount of time, but it all comes down to position, it all comes down to situation, it all comes down to how much you want to get these guys in. I know that Vince has some particular playtime incentives in his contract, so he could be going a little bit later in this one than most.
And Vince Wilfork was somebody Bill Belichick also praised here on Tuesday at Gillette Stadium, talking about how hard he has worked to get back from that Achilles injury in 2013. Well, the Patriots will wrap up the regular season here at Gillette Stadium on Sunday. They have practice here on Tuesday. They have kind of a shortened day on Wednesday. They will have Christmas Day off as the players get some time to relax with their family and spend the holiday with friends and family. I hope you do the same as well, Chris. I will try to do the same with my friends and family, and we wish everybody out there a very Merry Christmas as the Patriots wrap up the regular season on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills inside a rainy Gillette Stadium. For Christopher Price, I'm Mike Petraglia, WEEI.com.